I so much enjoy I Will Wait. Jeez. Thank God Mr. Tobiloba is here because he's going to pull me into how the music came about. Mr. Toby, how far now? Toby, what's up? That particular music, it literally just took me somewhere that see, right now I'm trying to come back. So tell me, what inspired that song?
I Will Wait first. How are you?
I'm good. Obviously, I'm good. Come on, man. I'm good.
Yeah, so I Will Wait is, you know how I write, like I have both of my songs have like, it will have both vertical songs and horizontal songs. So songs that will speak to society and context, right, and culture. And then I'll have songs that will go upwards as well, because clearly my faith is a huge part of my brand, right? But not religion, my faith.
Okay.
Right? So I Will Wait will be one of those songs that came to me in an interesting season. And that's why I think on the bridge I say, when noonday turns to midnight and flowers fail to bloom, when men withdraw approval, I will wait. Because, yeah, I think it's in this very fast-paced world, there's just so much pressure to become. There's so much pressure to prove. There's so much pressure to demonstrate that you are doing something. And I got to a point in my journey of self-actualization where I decided that for me, it's more about the process than it is about the result.
I love it.
And I know that the result will come with time, and I hope it's beginning to show. But I have always been obsessed with process. And if you're going to be obsessed with process, you have to have patience, you have to wait.
Yeah, I love it. That song was literally inspiring, and I'm very sure everybody out there enjoyed it because I did myself. So let's talk about the theme, which is shame. What does it actually mean to you? I want to even understand it because I'm actually a curious person. I like to say it every time. So when I see certain things, I want to ask, how did this person come about this stuff? Why exactly? So why shame?
So for me, I think shame is something that should be spoken about because in a way, it feels like, you know, that silent shadow that follows most of us.
Right.
I'll dare to say all of us.
Right.
But I stand to be corrected. I think that it's something that is universal. I think that is something that has potential to have a negative effect. I think that is also something, you know, I think that evil can be done in three ways. When we say someone does evil, we usually think that, you know, there's evil being done because someone is wicked.
Right.
Like, I'm wicked, so I will do evil. There's evil being done because people are ignorant. So you can be ignorant and do evil, but the fact that you were ignorant does not mean you still didn't do evil.
To be honest.
And then there's foolishness, right? So you're not ignorant, you're just selfish, and you're doing evil. You don't have to be wicked. So it's not like I want to hurt you. I just want to protect myself at all costs, and I'm not thinking of context. I'm not thinking of who gets hurt in the bits of that. But the outcome of all of those things is still evil.
Yes.
Right? So I feel like shame is one of those cases where sometimes it's not necessarily because people want to be wicked, right? It's just ignorance. So I think for something as important as that, for something as universal as that, for something as potentially negatively impactful as that, I mean, why not discuss it?
Right.
It has to be discussed. It has to be spoken about. It has to be brought to the open light.
I love it. Now, given what you do, right? You're a doctor. So I want us to take this whole conversation now to the psychological area, right? Or the psychological angle. Now, why do people shame other persons, right? What goes through their head? And the person that is shamed, that's the, what do you call that now? The victim. What also goes through that person's head? And how do you think that person can be able to come out of it? Given that you already said that shame is something that follows us around. I mean, since you said not everybody, so you stand to be corrected. Okay,
so in fairness, so I think if we're going to discuss what goes on in the mind of people, it would be fair to discuss it on both sides.
Yeah.
So from the perspective of the perpetrator and the perspective of the victim. So you will never find anybody or anyone with a considerable level of self-esteem deliberately shame another person. You know how Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I think we have a slide for that. Please, can we put that on? At the base of it, you'd have physiological needs. Then next to it, you'll have safety needs. And then next to it, you'd have love and belongings. And then on top of it, you'd have esteem. And then at the very top, tippy top, you'll have self-actualization. Now, we know already that physiological needs are, I mean, for you to be anything else, to even aspire to any of your other needs, you have to be alive and well,
Yeah.
right? So once your health is gone, every other thing, you can't think of belonging, you just want to be okay, you just want to be here, which is why we advocate for people to actually take their health seriously, both physical and mental health. Now, on top of that is safety. Right? You have to be safe. When we think safety, we only think physical safety. Oh, nothing is burning, no one's chasing us.
Yeah.
But you can also be in the midst of physical safety and live your entire life in emotional, what's the opposite of safety? Emotional threat.
Threat, okay.
Right? Then on top of that, you'll have love and belonging, and then esteem. You would never find anyone who's operating on the level of self-esteem that would deliberately shame someone. People shame people because they feel out of control in their own lives. And they use shaming other people to have a sense of control. So that's what's going on in the mind of the perpetrator.
Okay.
And the mind of the victim is very interesting because from a neurophysiological point of view, right? So we talk about the brain, right? Brain has lobes, parts for, without getting to nitty-gritty, like lobes. So we'll have frontal lobe, parietal lobe, temporal lobe, occipital lobe, right? These are parts of the cerebrum particularly, right? Okay, yeah, that's true. So the cerebrum, so the forebrain, do I go into this? So there's the forebrain, there's the midbrain, there's the hindbrain. Yeah, I'll try. So the forebrain is, is basically made up of a part that is called, it's the large part, it's the part that you largely see when you see a brain. It's called the cerebrum. And then in that cerebrum, that's where you have the lobes, right? Now, one of those lobes is called the frontal lobe. Now, the frontal lobe is the largest lobe. People would even argue that it's the most evolutionary advanced, part of the lobes. Is the most evolutionary advanced lobe. And in it, there's something called the prefrontal cortex. Now, you see, what the frontal lobe does is, so it plays a role in executive functioning. So you're talking planning, you're talking reasoning, you're talking even execution. Clearly, why executive planning. It also plays a role in what we call working memory, right? So working memory is a memory that you have to remember a phone number long enough to dial it. Right, so you need it, or I'd say pick that thing up there, and that's why you see people with ADHD struggle with stuff like that, because they will have some, alterations for lack of, to be very delicate about it, for alterations in their frontal lobe. So you tell a child, go and pick that, and before he gets there, he has forgotten. What did you say? Just give them what we do on this part of the world.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So the point I'm trying to make is that, so that's what the frontal lobe does. It's also the part of the brain that it also plays a role in understanding social context. Also in social reference, self-referencing. Now, not self-reflection. Self-referencing, right? So now you can see that it does a whole lot, right? Now, there's another part of the brain called the limbic system. So the limbic system is basically it's the oldest part of our brain. It plays a major role in emotional regulation, right? It's also, there are parts of the brain. So it's not, the limbic system is not necessarily a structure. It's a combination of structures, right? So it will be what's necessary for everything. You know how you can walk into a place and pick up the exact same smell, and from that smell, you would have that entire emotions.
Yeah.
Ladies will probably know about this. If you have a guy who smells a particular way and you have he gave you breakfast and then somebody walks in and smells like him, all of that emotions will come back again. And it's not only ladies, guys too as well. And stuff like that. So things that are emotional, related, or even trauma. You walk into a place, it looks a particular way. Maybe for some people, it's even smell of, someone like me, I like the smell of books. That old smell of books. There's just something about it that makes me feel, I don't know, it just,
wakes you up.
It wakes me up. So all of those things. And sometimes, so you will find out that, so there's a part of one of the organs, one of the parts of the brain that is part of the limbic system is what we call the amygdala. Now the amygdala is kind of like this almond shaped, part of the brain. Okay. And what it does is it scans for threat. So when somebody has been shamed, and I will go to that in some of the slides I want to explain.
Yeah.
And they have registered shame as a form of threat because of what it causes. We are social animals.
Yeah.
Right? So when you shame people, it kind of feels like you are disconnecting them from the continuum of humanity. And that's very painful. That's why we have prisons.
Right.
We send people out because we know that when we send them out, they will hurt.
Yeah.
Even, dating back to the olden days, we send people on exile. Why? Because we know that we're social animals and we require connection. Even introverted people who say they don't. Now, there's a difference between, you don't have to engage somebody verbally to connect with them. Even introverts still want connection.
I agree.
So because we all need it, because it's a need, right? And that's why it's part of the needs. They're love and belonging on the third tier of the hierarchy. Now, so when you take that, when you introduce shame into that system, what happens is that if shame has been tied to trauma, which most times it is, because you are disconnecting people, shame does not mean, shame is not saying you are wrong. It's not saying you did something wrong. It's saying you are wrong. It's not saying you did something that's not good enough. It's saying you are not good enough. And the interesting part is this is actually a huge part of our culture.
Right.
You know, even growing up in high school, I know you know this, where people yab, you know, and we're not yabbing what you did, we are yabbing you.
Yes.
You know, and we find fun in these things, and we pretend like these things don't actually impact. But people go home and sit and they ruminate. We call it rumination, and it actually sits at the core of their person. So it's not a joke. So it's actually a huge part of our culture. So in the mind of that person, and this thing is so serious because, like, think of it. So if you reactivate this threat, the amygdala is in people that are consistent. Imagine that you live in a household where there's chronic exposure to shame, and you'll be surprised so many families are like this. I beg. Like, that's the way they just roll. They wake up in the morning, is you are not good enough. It doesn't even have to be an insult. The subtle, constant remarks that's chipping at the person and the essence of the person consistently. Now, the interesting thing is when people are exposed to shame, there's actually there's a hormone called cortisol. It's the stress hormone. Cortisol is the radical guy. Because raised cortisol levels make any prognosis worse. From mental health issues to physical health issues, it causes precipitation of chronic illnesses from diabetes to COPD to autoimmune diseases of any kind, right? So it makes anything worse when it's high. And shame actually does that. So you can imagine that from that tiny bit that we just ignore in our culture, as if our life expectancy is not low enough. And then you add that again, you know, and then somebody who's got autoimmune diseases begins to even live even shorter. And we wonder why people are dying at young ages. Now, this is not oversimplification, and I'm not saying people are dying because of shame.
No, I hear you.
I'm saying that maybe shame is contributing to that as well. Because, so that's my answer. So I hope I've been able to express what happens on both sides of the coin.
And I like the fact that you mentioned the last things that you mentioned around the fact that, that's the reason, that could be a reason why some people die early and all of that, right? Now, you know how it is here in Nigeria, where we like to always say that men has more responsibility, men are the ones doing all the work more than women, right? And that's
Who says that?
That's the stereotype that we keep hearing.
Is this still the stereotype?
It is still the stereotype. But it's not now. It's even worse because there's that part of, I think there was a recent case about a girl that collected money from a guy and somehow did not show up. And at the end of the day, the guy won a case. Quite funny because I'm like, okay, how exactly is this kind of case even taken to court? But things like that happen.
Sorry, you lost me there. She got money for what?
So according to the conversation, right?
Are we digressing?
No.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is the fact that, there's that more of, how will I put that now? That part of men are the ones doing the whole thing. Women don't bring enough to the table, right? So if eventually, let me quickly, state out the story more, or so that you can literally comprehend.
I appreciate that.
Now,
I'm invested.
Now, you see this lady now, right? She, according to, her own part of the story, they somehow met online, right? The guy stays, I think, somewhere in Abuja, and she's staying here, not here in Lagos per se, but I can't remember where exactly, but the distance is quite far. And then she says, oh, the guy sent her money, blah, blah, blah. And, the guy wants her to come over, right? And somehow she's like, oh, she's not interested, but somehow the guy sent 50,000 naira to her, right? And at the end of the day, the guy takes it to court, right? And I really don't...
50,000
For 50,000 naira, exactly. And somehow the girl had to pay him. I don't know who the judge was, but somehow after the end of the thing, she paid him 450,000 naira for not showing up. Exactly.
Was it a business agreement?
It wasn't a business agreement. Okay. So you get what I'm saying? So there's always that part of, men, do a lot of things. Women are not like this. But then I want us to be able to stress this on, right? The way men, experience shame and the way men experience shame, do you think they are same or they are differently? Because, like I said, this has happened over and over again, where you see that women are, are put in the, in the shame level more. There's always that, oh, you're this age, you're not married. There's always a lot of talk concerning women more than men. Because like I've explained the story to you now. I don't see a reason why, even though I mean it's on him, right? And I'm not judging him or anything, but I don't see a reason why. The least you would have done is collect your money back. And according to the girl, she told him to send his account so that she would send the money back to him. But somehow he refused, and he took the case to court. And so at the end of the day, he collected 450,000 naira. Imagine that. Okay. So just tell me what you think about it.
Okay, first, about the issue that you described, that you explained, the one with the gentleman and the lady. Let me not touch it, because I think we'll be here till tomorrow.
Right.
But the other thing about men and women being shamed.
Yeah.
I think that what we are being shamed for is very different, and how we are being shamed is very different.
Right.
But I would not generalize and say that one gender is more shamed than the other, because I think everyone gets their own piece of the cake. Right? I think, for instance, you know that men are likely to commit suicide 3 times more than women. Right? I'm not taking the side of the men, but even if I was, I mean, if it's the truth, why? But that's not even, I don't think it's the truth. I'm just saying that. But I think that what we shame women for might just be embarrassing.
Right.
Like, if you think about it logically, like in 2025, right? It's demeaning. It's like, if we are shaming women for things that are connected to their fundamental human right, like their bodies, it's ridiculous.
Right.
You know, it's contradicting the fact that we actually acknowledge their autonomy and, you know, full existence of their person, right? But then you might want to argue that way, and until you think of the fact that, that's why I said it's both sides. I mean, would it be okay to shame a short guy?
No.
But do you know how many people do that?
Right.
So it's, oh, now you're laughing.
Because there's a
right?
whole lot on that one.
Yes. So my point is, I think everyone gets a piece of the cake. And regardless of whether you're, you know, whatever gender, and I think how we do it is different. Yes, we might not shame men for marriage, but we shame men for being broke. You know? Like, how are you this age and you don't have anything put together? It doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter whether you're the first person to start breaking the ground in your lineage.
Right.
How come you don't have money? You know, it doesn't matter what, you know, look at this gentleman who's coming from a line of wealth, and you starting from zero. How come you don't have something? And you wouldn't even say it directly. It's just shaming. So that's why I said what they are being shamed for and how they are being shamed for. If I come to you and say, madam, cover your lap, like they would typically say to a woman, the woman can decide to respond. And in the process of responding back to whoever is shaming her, she might get some sense of catharsis, which is a sense of release to that pain that she feels. But for a broke man, it might not be direct shaming. It just sees that nobody's picking his call. He's still shaming.
My God.
All right. So you see where I'm coming from. So what we shame them for and how we shame them might be different, but I think everybody gets a piece of the cake.
This is actually really a lot. I mean, if you look at the way things are right now, it just feels like probably one gender is more shamed, right, from to use that compared to like the other gender. Like this story I gave you, but it is what it is. Please, let's go on this short break, you guys.